Welcome to Not Badger for the first week, ending April 30th, 2016. Here, thanks to our dedicated and loving slave pool, we have compiled a collection of funny, interesting, and hopefully useful clips from our most watched shows. Please feel free to take these nuggets of shit, pull the corn out, and find the gold and precious stones that are hidden within our ramblings. We begin our journey with Ragening number 31.
The following is a party political broadcast for the Pigs Equality Party. I mean the Women's Equality Party. What are you taking offence at? Your appearance, right? You didn't even notice the Orwell reference. Women's equality is an oxymoron. An obviously Orwellian oxymoron. Which, at the risk of sounding silly, I'm going to call an ooh.
Imagine a world where all women and girls are safe.
Where all women and girls are safe. What, men and boys can just go hang? When is it going to not be ethical to just exclude an entire population from care?
Oh shit, y'all. It's a woman saying it. Now what?
When is that going to be something that's like, maybe we shouldn't do that?
I often forget that Alison has a gender, but she does, and it's a woman. And in this instance, for the sake of this argument, that's actually rather helpful. Because if I had said that, if I had said, why are you excluding men? Your party line response would no doubt be, OMG, why does everything have to be about you? But oh shit, there's a woman saying it. Now what? When a man asks, why are you excluding men? You respond by excluding him from the conversation with a childish mini tantrum. But then a woman asks the same question. Why are you excluding men? And now you need an actual argument. And you'll be caught with your pants down because you don't fucking have one. You've never had an argument. You just have a policy. Exclude men from care. That is your policy. And it is your excuse for your policy. Not only are you bigots, you even believe your bigotry justifies itself for just existing without explanation.
We understand that that's not ethical when you talk about any other group besides men and boys. We understand that's totally unethical. But it's just okay with that one group. And of course, we've identified the one group throughout all of human history that it was totally okay to exclude from compassion. Every other group, we eventually realized that, yeah, those are pretty shameful aspects of our history when we decided to exclude certain groups from human compassion. But this time we got it right. This time we're absolutely 100% right that the right people to exclude from care and compassion are men and boys. We're not going to get this wrong. This is not going to be another shameful period of human history. No, seriously. We are going to be vindicated by our descendants in this particular exclusion. Unlike all of the other exclusions throughout history, that everybody hangs their head in shame about and says, this is why aliens don't visit us. This is why we can't have nice things, Earthlings. You know, this one is the right one. We got it right this time.
Are you listening? Women's Equality Party. Were you spending that last minute or so listening, or were you spending the whole time trying to think of how to justify excluding a woman as well? This is what's so dangerous about the Ragening.
Where those who experience domestic violence and abuse can escape.
Oh, I think I get what's going on in this scene.
Bye.
Imagine a world where we ring-fence investment.
The man and the girl are both very upset. Neither of them wants to go home to the abusive mother. She hits her everywhere but the face, and she throws the contents of the kitchen at him. Much to the ongoing concern of the neighbours, but every time someone calls the police, he's the one who gets detained. so it just gets worse.
And build homes and provide services.
That's how he got a scar on his face. Forgetting the contents of the kitchen for a minute. See, I'm just deducing from the evidence here. It's not much, but there is some clear evidence that this man has been injured. There is no evidence that he has injured anyone. None whatsoever. The atmosphere you're trying to paint is not evidence. It's just propaganda. Yes? When you see a woman with a scar on her face, what do you think? You think she's in danger, don't you? When you see a man with a scar on his face, what do you think? You think he's dangerous. Maybe you should stop listening to the propaganda and just look at the evidence.
So that they and I know what harassment is. And I know what harassment is. What harassment is.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is why I've spent the past year periodically reminding you of Calgary. And I will continue to. It's been a year, by the way. And quite a long year it's been. Us anti-feminists and gamergators and various manosphere folks have spent this year producing a wealth of complex and thoughtful arguments. And what have our opponents done? They ran to the media to say, shut them down, they're harassing us. No examples of harassment. They ran to the UN to say, lock the internet down, they're harassing us. No examples of harassment. They ran to the internet itself to say, put us in charge of social media, they're harassing us. No examples of harassment. They just cry harassment and everyone fucking believes them. The reason Calgary is a very important lesson is because they finally put their foot where their mouth is and reveal to us all what they in fact mean by harassment. We actually got an example of the kind of horrifying, terrorizing event that needs to be dealt with this totalitarian dissolution of free expression. And it's this.
But at what point did Alison...
Sorry, Alison. One more time.
But at what point did Alison... Did it become a dirty thing for women to be into this stuff? Like, in the eyes of so many of these men's rights activist types, or...
Would you like us to field that question?
Huh?
Would you like us to field that question?
Sure, go for it.
Because I am a men's rights activist, so you can hate on me. The reason why I don't like feminism is because you promote this idea that women are defined by being victims.
That is what harassment is. Just so you know. That is what they will kick you out and permaban you for saying. That is what they will call the police on you for saying. And they're not even lying. It's just that in their memory, that was a 15-foot demon rising over the audience and belching fireballs relentlessly at the panel.
And I know what harassment is.
This is fact, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for talking about things on the internet, but we went out and gathered empirically demonstrated facts. And this is the fact of the matter. As far as the most powerful and influential feminists are concerned, disagreeing with them is a crime. They call it harassment. Refusing to treat women like eternal victims is a crime. It's called misogyny. The speech crime is much worse than the thought crime, obviously, but they're both crimes. And hate crimes at that.
What harassment is.
So, you're welcome, guys. Welcome to the empirical data we gave you. It's right there for you to use whenever you like. We don't just point to evidence, we are the evidence. And we didn't go in with any predetermined conclusions. But we sure as hell left with undeniable data. A bit of kerosene and theta waves. And it's funny how the MRAs said we got kicked out because we're MRAs, and the Gamergators said we got kicked out because we're Gamergators. That much is predictable enough. Everyone wants their label to be the victim. Everyone has their own goggles. But what I really didn't expect was shortly after hearing Gamergators saying, Gamergate is the label everyone hates! Rah rah, everyone rally around this label! They then turned around to us and said, MRA is the label everyone hates. You should drop it. The world is a fucking treacherous place sometimes. It's to be expected. The terrain is rather rough around the edges. But you have to treat it like the injured animal it is. Just accept that it's going to be an asshole sometimes. I know, it's hard, but it's the only way. All right, so let's go through this with the data that we've gathered.
The Women's Equality Party want to work with organisations to help put an end to harassment and intimidation.
All right, one more time.
Put an end to harassment.
What do they mean by harassment?
Challenging the notion that women are defined as victims.
And intimidation.
What do they mean by intimidation?
Don't say you're a victim of this culture. Say that you build what you want to see.
The Women's Equality Party want to work with organisations to help put an end to harassment and intimidation in all public spaces in London.
So we can all relax and enjoy this city.
I do not find you cute and personable. I find you mortally terrifying for the empirical reasons I just outlined. And if they put you in charge of this nation's capital, which happens to be my city of residence, then I will sprint in the direction of the sea, confident that I'll be moving fast enough to aquaplane all the way across it, and I don't even care if I hit Sweden or Canada. It would be better. Do you understand? I would rather get raped by a moose or a Muslim than live in a city governed by this Stalinist jackmob of yours. No, thank you.
More showers in schools,
You are literally talking down to us.
colleges and workplaces
Like we're children.
to get more of us on bikes.
Oi, director of this video, this is your job, as literally as can be. This is your job, the direction of the shot. And when you're asking adults for their vote, the least you could do is stand eye to eye with them. I encounter this problem a lot as a tall person. I pretty much have to get down on one knee if I'm to have any chance of sympathy. But you have complete free reign of the shot here, Mr. or Mrs. Director, and I'm amazed that it slipped your mind that voting adults don't like being talked directly down to like they are children. I mean, can you say nanny state?
Now we move along to Rantzerker number 53. Brace yourself, because Lacey's coming in dry.
False rape accusations, and I would like to state, just for the record, that Lacey Green raped me of my innocence. And of course, this being YouTube, and I just said that allegation on YouTube, you have to, of course, believe me. And Lacey Green has to do the mental gymnastics to make that true. That she did indeed rape me. Parentheses of my innocence.
Lacey Green raped me of my common sense and my dignity.
Brian.
Yes.
Did Lacey Green rape you?
Yes, Lacey Green totally petted me in all the wrong ways.
That fucking disgusting, horrible
sexual predator?
And she's going to have to prove that she did not somehow.
Oh, yeah, no, of course, because that's the way things should be.
Exactly. Guilty before proven innocent. It's the foundation of justice in our society.
David Butt, that butthead who, lawyer, former prosecutor, I believe, or maybe he's still a prosecutor, who wants to essentially construct a separate parallel system of restorative justice for rape and sexual assault victims in Canada, in which there would be a different burden of proof and a different set of evidentiary rules and blah, 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 right? All in favor of essentially convicting men of this crime, this particular kind of crime. He essentially said, well, the reason that we need that is because the victims of this crime are underserved, right? They're underserved by the law as it stands now because report rates are so low. Only, 30% of victims of sexual assault ever report that to the police that they were sexually assaulted. And okay, so let's take this in context. Only about 30% of victims of all types of crime, including simple assault, aggravated assault, theft, robbery, muggings, all of that, right? Only about 30% of all victims of crimes bother to report those crimes to the police. Your garden hose goes missing from your yard, you're probably not going to report it to police. My kid's bike got stolen. Guess what? I didn't report it to police. My car got broken into and rifled through 10 or 11 times before I reported it to police. And I only did that because, like the 11th fucking time they dumped my ashtray out on the floor of my car looking for half-smoked cigarettes, right? So essentially, almost all types of crimes, other than homicide and like murder and car theft, right? Automobile theft, is grossly underreported. 70% or so of those crimes are not reported to police, right? And the only reason murder is almost always reported is because, you have this problem of a dead body lying here. And car theft, you have the problem of registration and insurance issues, right? Every car is registered and insured, therefore you have to report that it's been stolen, right? So essentially, these are the only two crimes that have very, very high report rates, almost 100%. All the other ones are hovering around the exact same freaking rate of reporting as sexual assault, in terms of how prevalent it is and what percentage of victims report it to the police. And then on top of that, you have a conviction rate, cases brought to trial that result in conviction, of 55% for murder and about 45% for rape in Canada. Not that big a fucking difference, particularly since in case of murder, you actually have a dead body. You have a dead body that did not die of natural causes and can be determined to have not died of natural causes. You may have a murder weapon. You have DNA evidence. You have all kinds of stuff. You have a definite crime that's been committed. With rape, the 80% of rapes that occur within a dating or acquaintance context, you first have to prove that a crime was even committed. And then you have to tie the perpetrator to that crime, right? When it comes to being stabbed to death, pretty much everyone agrees and assumes that there was a crime committed there, that the person who got stabbed to death didn't consent to that.
Wait. You mean what you're saying is that there isn't a lot of consensual stabbings, whereas there are a lot of situations where exactly the same act is consensual. But with rape, you have to determine whether or not exactly the same act was consensual or not.
Yeah, and that's
it's pretty easy to tell.
That's based entirely on state of mind now, right? So essentially, what you have, you've had feminists who have essentially they've eliminated the requirement to prove that you resisted by showing that you were physically injured. They've eliminated the requirement to provide corroborative witnesses, right? They've eliminated all of these requirements. So they've essentially boiled a rape case, any given rape case that occurs within a dating or acquaintance context, right? Or a relationship context. So 80% of all rapes, right, that happen in private between people who know each other, people who often trust each other, people who are often in a relationship with each other, and people who you would assume, okay, in this situation, would it be reasonable to assume that people would agree to have sex? Well, yes. Not like the woman who's jumped by a freaking douchebag with a knife on a jogging path at 5 o'clock in the morning, nobody would ever assume a woman would reasonably consent to sex under those circumstances. But, you know, second date, oh my goodness, they had sex. Well, how reasonable is it to believe that she would consent to sex under those circumstances? It becomes a completely different question. And at that point, because they've eliminated every other fucking thing, they've eliminated the requirement to prove resistance, they've eliminated the requirement for corroborative witnesses, they've eliminated all of these things that would make it easy for a woman to prove that, you know, in the case that she actually did resist and was beaten or something like that, right, that she had actually been raped. They've removed all of those requirements, and now it's just all down to state of mind in a private situation with no fucking witnesses, and in a situation in which it would not be unreasonable to assume that a woman would agree to have sex with a man. So how the fuck is there a 45% conviction rate?
So the final thing that I wanted to say is it's amazing we get that conviction rate as it is, considering that we're trying to decide or trying to sort through an ocean worth to find a single dropper worth of red ink. That's unbelievable. And as the Innocence Project shows, there is an incredible rate of false positives in that situation.
Yes, misidentification is included in the false/unfounded report rate, but it does not include what she's about to say next.
Of inconsistent details, but it is a well-known fact amongst victimologists that trauma affects your memory, and that
the false unfounded report rate includes things like the Crystal Gail Mangum, you know, she accused these 3 Duke lacrosse players, and one of them had video footage of him at an ATM and a receipt, right, of him being at an ATM across town at the time that he was supposedly gang raping this woman, right? Oh, yeah, no, that was just a recollection error, right? Yeah, no.
Yeah, you can sort of slide in there. If you're a false accuser, you can really get in the recollection errors there. But regardless, I mean, 2 to 8% are misidentified perpetrator or recollection error or outright false report, and then you have another 80 in which you don't know what happened at all.
It's not even 2 to 8%. It is 8%. It is 8%. The FBI has never provided a 2% anything.
That's like
it's 8%.
That 2% thing comes from Susan Brownmiller, right? Yeah. So basically, Lacey's starting from the Susan Brownmiller 2% number, which is complete fabrication bullshit, because it only came from one source, and she was the source, and no one challenged it, and no one thought it was weird, or, you know, and nobody like ever redid the math on it or went and looked at her stuff. They just took it as gospel. And then the 8%, which is the, you know, the actual data.
The FBI
and she's
number.
basically saying it's somewhere in there.
That somebody, you know, why don't you just support both parties until something is determined in a criminal court?
Yeah.
What the hell's wrong with that? You know, you are automatically going with a presumption of guilt on everybody's part.
Yeah, no, except for not on the woman's part, right? Because falsely reporting a felony is a crime in itself, and so she's assuming that men are guilty and women are innocent, and that if we don't believe women when they say they've been raped, and we don't, and we do believe men when they say they haven't been, right? That somehow this is like, I don't know what, sexist, or, you know, when men say they haven't raped anyone.
That you can have cases like Cosby's where nearly 60 women come forward and report, and people still don't believe that anything happened. Sometimes the perpetrator even goes so far.
No, it's so amazing. It's so amazing how many women came forward and accused their neighbors of witchcraft in Salem. And I'm almost positive that the false report rate of witchcraft in 1691 was, you know, really, really super low, only 2%, right? And then all these women came forward. They must have been telling the truth.
Yeah. No such thing as a feeding frenzy in this world, apparently. Because of the shit being spewed out of this woman's mouth. So feminists collectively are responsible for more rapes. Fucking unbelievable. But if you are listening, report it. And just be prepared that you're going to be going through a process where they don't know the truth. So you will be questioned. But don't take it personally.
No, and here's the thing.
You have some support while you go through it. Somebody who will believe you.
Who is committing the wrongdoing in a given situation? When somebody is raped, there's a rapist. That rapist is a criminal. Everybody believes that they're a criminal if you can prove that you were raped, right? Everybody believes that person is a criminal. Everybody condemns what they did, right? And therefore, and it's one person holding you down and fucking you against your will. When you are falsely accused of rape, right, you have one person, right, who's getting the entire weight of the system to hold you down so they can fuck you against your will, right? You literally have a system that has been legitimated by the consensus of the general public, right? The entire weight of that system is on you. It is not one perpetrator. It is an entire system that is the perpetrator and is aiding and abetting the perpetrator, the primary perpetrator of that false accusation, right? And it's not about being held down for 20 minutes or an hour or whatever against your will, and then you get to, pick up the fucking shambles of your life. No, you are facing a years-long fight in some cases just to keep yourself out of prison, for, I don't know, anywhere from like 2 to 15 or 20 years, right? So at which point you're going to be raped and you're going to be fucked over by the system. And so it is an entirely different fucking crime with entirely different consequences, right? Your autonomy as a person, as a rape victim, has been removed for a period of time of 20 minutes or an hour or a day or whatever, right? Unless you're Fritzl's daughter, in which case it was decades, right? But that's an extreme case, right? The normal rape victim, it's just like, it's one incident, and then it's done, it's over, and you have your life back to put back together, right? No, when you have falsely accused somebody of rape and the system decides that they agree with you that person belongs in prison, right? Your life is gone. It's gone for the foreseeable future, right? And it's not just that one person victimizing you. It's the entire fucking system.
Yep. Oh! Disbelief protects abusers, just like the KKK. Said disbelief and justice in the criminal justice system protected those fucking niggers raping white women. And I'm saying that with anger at the entire concept of this shit, that this is resurfacing again. Because guess what, Lacey Green? You know the group of men who's most likely to be believed guilty? The group of men who is most likely to be believed guilty of a sexual crime. Do you want to guess what group of men that's going to be? Do you want to guess, you self-entitled white woman? As you march another generation of black men into a lynching culture. Because guess what? It still affects white men, but the hammer goes down harder on black men. And you are the fucking standard bearer of this shit, of bringing us back, regressing us back. Disbelief protects abusers. This is the same fucking logic as the KKK. I'm sorry, did I blow out everyone's eardrums?
No, it's fine. This video has been viewed 500,000 times.
Great!
And she has 1,500,000 subscribers. And despite the fact that Bill Cosby still hasn't been found guilty of actually raping anyone, and the only thing that he's actually confessed to is taking drugs with women, the large consensus of people who I speak to, who I know, and I'm sure that you may also have friends too, and those of you who are watching, all of my friends and people who I know, they are convinced, they're positive that he's not only guilty, but it's actually been discovered, like, for whatever reason. There's been a confession or there has been a conviction of some kind, and for whatever reason he's used his status to get out of actually going to prison. And that is the degree to which this is actually impacting our people's, the public zeitgeist about this kind of thing. If there is enough hit pieces and articles that warp the facts, they leave things out, or they just, they don't directly make a declaration of truth on something, but instead they allude, they assume. There are people who give opinions. They say, I think he did it. I think that and this is Bill Cosby totally did it, and what do you think? And here's all the reasons why I believe it. And then everyone else that reads it says, yeah, I think he did it too. But there has been absolutely, to my knowledge, nothing has been put, pen to paper that said, yes, he's been found guilty. All we know is, oh, look at all these women that came forward. It must be true based on that. Oh, he admitted to doing drugs with women. It must be true based on that. Here's a whole bunch of memes I saw. It must be true based on that. Here's what the Young Turks had to say, and so on. None of it actually means anything. Well, the only thing that ultimately matters is what the court decides. And when I run into people who bring that up, I say, they say, well, I think he did it. What you think doesn't matter.
She fucked me anyway, and I said no.
Lacey
I know.
raped me.
Alison.
It was horrible. She touched my thigh, and then it was just so gruesome. It was like, all these slugs crawling up my skin, and I couldn't help it. And I lurched away from her, and I turned away, and I was just so, like, nausea just rolled over me like a Chinook over the desert. And then I managed to just lurch to the sink, and I was sick. I was so sick. And I threw up all these carrots, and it was horrible. Horrible!
On the tail of that, and what a large tail it was, we bring you to the highlights of Honey Badger Radio number 53.
According to the report, What We Know from Abused Men in Scotland, the Scottish Domestic Abuse Helpline that police refer men to is labeling its male clients as abusers based on criteria not employed for female clients. The labeling system allows for 3 possible labels for help-seeking men. The only one that does not emphasize the man as a perpetrator also categorically excludes him from being a victim as well. The other 2 levels label him as a perpetrator of domestic violence but differ in severity, with one label indicating he hasn't engaged in high-risk incidents in the last 4 months, while the other indicates he is currently abusive toward his partner. There is no label for a man who is the victim of domestic violence. The report goes on to describe one incident in which this is hampering the ability of a male victim to seek help. So at the moment I'm trying to help a man access refuge accommodation in another part of Wales. His ex-partner has made allegations that he abused her, as a result of which his local police have labeled him as a grave and serious risk, and in consequence he can't be allocated refuge space anywhere. We know that his partner has made these allegations because she's trying to find out where he's hiding at the moment. She hopes that if he appears in court, she can discover his address and carry out her threat to have him beaten up really severely. It's manipulation of the system. If the boot was on the other foot and the genders were reversed in this case, there would be no question about what would happen. The authorities would reinterpret the situation with the woman as the victim, but once a man has been accused of being a perpetrator, getting that label changed is really, really difficult. The aid line in question is run by a partnership, or run in partnership by the National Domestic Violence Helpline and the Women's Aid and Refuge. The same woman had him trapped in a room, in an upper story room, and was throwing things at him. And he went to jail for 18 months for pushing past her to get out of the room. So he basically shouldered past her, no bruises, no damage, no nothing. But because he touched her on the way out, he was the assailant in all of the things that she was doing, throwing heavy objects, throwing sharp objects, throwing punches. None of that mattered. Just the fact that on the way out, he shoved her aside to get away. And that's going on everywhere. And feminists have influenced this particular industry to the point where any violence the woman commits gets considered preemptive self-defense the moment the man defends himself from her in any way. And that's how they quote unquote justify labeling the abuse victim the abuser and the abuser the victim.
Right? They are the ones that you have to be suspicious of. You have to be suspicious that they're falsely reporting having been abused as a means of harnessing the system in order to perpetrate abuse on their partners and all of this other shit, right? This is just fucking how it is for men. Like, literally, it's written into policy in Australia. Don't trust the man who says he's abused by his female partner, because he's probably lying to get her into trouble as a way of continuing his abuse of her.
In the United States, there is something similar. Although, if your partner is male, if it's a man and his partner is male, then they have some resources. In fact, they assume first, if you're calling, unless you immediately start talking about a female partner, that you're a man being abused by another man. Which is kind of odd, because the least amount of abusiveness in relationships is among gay men. The highest is among lesbians, not among straight people. And the lowest percentage is in among gay men. But if a man calls, their first assumption is that the partner abusing him must also be male. And as soon as they find out they're dealing with somebody with a female partner, they'll change their tune immediately. Even if they do have resources, a lot of times they don't have a place for a man to stay. Where there's a shelter for women, they will put a man up in a hotel room, or they will direct him to a homeless shelter where he can only stay for a few days. But as far as a long-term resource like what's available for women attempting to escape abusive relationships, you don't really have that.
You know, you even look at that "How Can She Slap" video, where the woman, you know, like you have these game show contestants who they've all signed a contract saying that they are safe from assault, that there will be no physical assault whatsoever, guaranteed, and the female host slaps one of them across the face, and a tenth of a second later he slaps her back, right? It was a reflexive response, and he got the ever-loving shit beat out of him by like 20 guys who all rushed in to defend this woman who had initiated the violence, right, from a position of authority, in violation of a contract that guaranteed his safety, right? And so you essentially have a culture that is sort of predicated on men's responsibility to protect women, and you have this bizarre system in law. And anybody who wants to actually look into this, look up Deepika Bardwaj or Barjwan, or I'll find the fucking
Bardwaj.
Yeah.
Deepika Bardwaj, I think, is who you're talking about.
Yeah, she gets into dowry abuse laws, rape laws, all of this stuff, right? I mean, the whole reason that women can bring a charge of breach of rape because of breach of contract or breach of promise, even if they weren't promised marriage, they've now decided that they want to get married, right? And that was never part of the plan when they had the consensual sex, but she got pregnant, or her neighbors are making comments behind their hands about her or whatever, and now she's changed her mind. She wants to get married to legitimate the sexual relationship. And she can bring a charge against him, and the vast majority of those cases in particular, or she wants him to marry her, he promised to marry her, but his parents won't allow it, right? And so she brings a charge of rape in order to coerce the parents to give permission for him to marry her. For a false rape accusation, or a place like Israel, there are no penalties whatsoever, even if a woman is completely brazen about it, even if she has been caught red-handed. And I've seen instances of a cab driver's dashboard camera, right, catching a woman not only, and he's phoning the police to try to get her out of his cab because she's being violent and belligerent. And she's literally sitting in the passenger seat screaming rape and slapping herself in the face so that the cops can hear her being slapped over the phone, right? And it's all being caught on camera. And she never faced any consequences for that. So, I mean, if that's the situation, right, then you're going to incentivize false reports. And there are things that you can do to disincentivize them. So I think that like the whole idea that, X percentage of rape reports are false, it's a useless number, because it's going to change. It's going to change from 1 year to the next. It's going to change from one jurisdiction to another. It's going to change from one culture to another. It's going to change based on a lot of factors. So yeah, India and Israel right now are unbelievable. And in China, oh my God, just recently they removed boys from the protection of statutory rape laws. And an 11-year-old boy was charged as an adult with rape for having sex with his same-age girlfriend.
Oh.
Because he's no longer protected by statutory rape laws. There's no age of consent laws for boys anymore in China. In most of those cases, it was men raping up caste. They were raping women who were above their status. And when men raping down caste, I wouldn't say they're a dime a dozen in India. I don't think that rape is particularly rampant in India. But those cases tend to fly under the media radar because they don't inspire the type of outrage that sort of this idea of the high status woman who is a woman of quality being touched, having a filthy gutter dweller putting his disgusting hands on her, right? And so I don't even think that you necessarily need to have that sort of element of we see these lower class men as being predatory, or we see them as being forcibly coercing or being overtly seductive. We actually see them as simply having no right to touch a woman who is so elevated, so high above them. Even if she invites it, even if she's the initiator, even if she seduces him, even if she holds him down and has her way with him, like Fanny Hill did with the stable boy in the novel, right? It's still his fault, because he should have known that it was not okay for him to even go along, to allow her to seduce him, because she's above him and he has no right to put his hands on her. I think that has something to do with it too.
And here we have this guy who's going through everything that every other teenager goes through. All of the humiliating moments that guys go through that girls that age don't understand, like, erections in the front of the classroom and things like that, and he has no close support network. And people wonder why the group that commits suicide the most is men. It's things like this. It's things like false accusations being used to take their children away. It's being the sex that can be targeted with something as weighty and as life-altering as this on the whim of a person who doesn't want to get a lecture from grandma. His whole adolescence can be wrecked because she doesn't want to get a lecture from grandma. And I would bet that there would be people out there going, oh, you don't want to say stuff like that to the girl. You don't want to make her feel bad. Fuck yeah, I want to make her feel bad. Look what she did.
Well, no, what they end up saying is that I don't want any actual victims, potential victims, to stay quiet about what happened to them, because they're seeing us being critical about these people who lied. And so that'll keep them in the shadows, keep them from coming out. And that's what people that are like on the moderate mid-fence between feminism and MRNs, where they're like deciding not to be feminist, but they're not quite MRAs, they still have this element of, oh, I don't want to scare away any potential victims by talking about false rape accusations and how these girls weren't believed. So I'm going to stay quiet about that. And there's a way to go around that, because that's unfortunate.
It certainly takes social justice-y type thinking to associate actual sexual violence victims with liars, as if the two are really related, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between one and the other. And those who have actually been through an experience and actually have evidence of their experience should, in any way, shape, or form, think that by reporting they would be shuffled off into the same category as people who come in with no evidence because what they're claiming didn't happen. And of course, she didn't have a rape kit. She didn't go to the hospital because it would have proved her wrong. There wouldn't have been any evidence. The accusation was pursued by a female police detective from the city of Dayton, not from like the outlying areas, even though both of them were from suburbs that were not Dayton proper. But she went to Dayton proper for this one. Now, Dayton doesn't have, like, bigger New York City crime rate or the Chicago crime rate or anything like that, or Cleveland, but we have murders, we have rapes, we have actual violent crime here that they got to pay attention to. That they have things to do. It's definitely a waste of police resources to go in and make a false accusation like this. And of course, because we do have a crime rate like that here, they should be familiar with victim behavior and savvy enough to be suspicious. When, in the course of the investigation, the victim can't keep her story straight. So my friend proved his alibi. He actually had physical evidence that he was elsewhere doing something other than, raping the ex at the time that she made the accusation, that she said it had happened, and on that day. And so she said she'd given the wrong date. Oh, I got the day wrong. Well, that was debunked. He had evidence of where he was on her second story. He had evidence to prove her wrong then too. So she changed it again, along with the time. And when that didn't work, she changed it again. And this detective, this female detective, continued to pursue the case, even after the accuser changed the day, changed the time, changed details of what was supposed to have happened. She couldn't keep her story straight, to the point where it became an entirely different story. Each time she revised her story, he was dragged into the police office. Now, they don't arrest you. They come to your door and they say they're going to take you in for questioning. You can't just not go, but you're not under arrest. So they don't have to read you your Miranda rights, and they don't have to treat you like you're under arrest. But they can lock you up, and they can make you pay bail to get out. So they can take your money, they take your medications and everything. You had asthma, he's diabetic. This is not somebody who's the most dangerous sounding man locally. And they took all that stuff. They had to take it in, because if you're in the jail for an extended period of time, and you have a medication that you have to take, say, every time you eat, or every 8 hours, or every 4 hours or something, you have to have it available to you, but you can't have it on your person because you're in jail. So they take that stuff. And at one point during this ordeal, they lost expensive medications belonging to him, and then claimed never to have been given those medications. And they hadn't documented that they received them or anything. They just, lost something like $150 worth of medications belonging to a man who was low income. So at one point he was questioned on this accusation. At one point he was questioned for 12 hours straight without food or water or access to his medications. And that was the time that they misplaced them. And there was, of course, he never got a receipt. He never got anything back from them on that. we were trying to figure out, we understood that the police had an attitude of listen and believe just for an accusation. But when it came to this situation, we're trying to figure out, all right, so she's changed her story. She's changed her story like 3 times. Did she keep some of your hair? Did she maybe steal a condom that had sperm in it and freeze it or something that she gave them? What could she possibly have that would have a detective who would know better continuing to pursue this case until an attorney actually had to threaten legal action against the police department for harassment? She had the Violence Against Women Act. She had the training that detective is given because it's written into federal law. She had legally mandated listen and believe. And that was really all it was. It wasn't the detective's personal attitude. It wasn't, this woman hates men and just wants to take them all down. It was feminist, lobbied, legal requirements for what police detectives are trained to do.
And lastly, we will look at Polecat Cast number 59. So yeah, she's really mad at religious people and, the usual suspects that I noticed that feminists tend to be angry at, especially the sex-positive ones, like Lacey Green. But here's the blog post that I thought was the most interesting that she shared. My feminism has nothing to do with men. It is not defined as equality for all genders. It isn't even about equality. I don't want to be equal with men because I don't like or want this patriarchy men have. My feminism is about liberation for all women and an end of the oppression of all women, including women of color, immigrants, lesbians, and trans women. Now, just to throw it in there, if it says immigrants, this is probably a relatively recent quote, I think.
Yeah.
It is about equity, doing what is necessary to ensure everyone has a quality standard of life, has their human rights respected, and is free from oppression. I am not into definitions of feminism that are aimed at making feminism appear non-threatening to men. It is threatening to men, and it should be. So, she produced that trailer.
Did you say she's from Iraq, I believe, is where you said she's based at?
Toronto, Canada.
Oh, that's weird because all those things that she said she's trying to get, I'm pretty sure she already has. I mean, I could be mistaken because I am just a mansplaining white cis heterosexual blah 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 blah.
Melissa, baby, the reason why you were fired has nothing to do with the color of your skin. You are not a martyr. The college isn't trying to go after black people through you. You physically harassed a reporter with high-functioning autism and figuratively spit on his First Amendment rights when you verbally mocked him. You cannot pull the shaggy defense and say, it wasn't me, when there is video evidence of your salacious behavior. Physical harassment is wrong. Denying somebody their ability to exercise their First Amendment rights is wrong. You can't justify your actions against a kid who is standing there with a video camera, not harming anybody, not saying anything to anybody, just standing there. The ends never justify the means. Get that through your ginger skull. What you did was wrong. I don't know what else to add to this beyond the obvious and what we already know about you. You have done nothing to benefit the lives of black people. You have done nothing to benefit the educational atmosphere of Mizzou. Attendance at this university is down 20% because of self-righteous tyrants like yourself. Not only that, but I would also like to add that Mizzou has closed, I believe, 2 frat houses. So it's the university is actually it's actually taken a lot of damage from this. It looks like Mizzou lost this one, bro.
Well, the thing with the Young Turks is one of the things that I noticed. I mean, there's a whole laundry list of stuff that we could go into, and we're getting away from the initial point. But is that they have created a group of sacred cows. They have made their own set of deities in the left, and you can't go after them. And I think that was one of the problems that Rubin had, was when he would try and be a dissenting voice, Cenk would do his, "Oh, you're crazy, blah, 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 you don't know what you're talking about. I'm a bloviating fat ass, blah, blah, blah,
Carrot, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Go make me a sandwich, blah, you owe your life to feminism, blah, 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 fucking doing that fucking routine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so they have created a standard whereby they don't want dissent. They are not discerning news people. They are simply a left echo chamber, plain and simple, And I am on the left. I am very firmly entrenched in the left. And I know that if you can't fucking point out the fucked up things your own party's doing, then you got problems. Then you're not left or right. You're a fucking ideologue. You're a totalitarian. You're an authoritarian. You're just there to tell people what to do. You're not telling people like, hey, there's a problem here. We need to fix it. Let's go about these things, trying to find ways to find solutions. It's just and that's kind of like where I saw like when I, it's like kind of unsubbed and walked away from the Turks when they started just being that kind of way, where they started holding up these sacred cows, and they're just like, oh no, never question Al Gore or anybody else. It's just whoever the person in the moment is at that particular time. So
whatever it is that they had from their youth, I don't expect that we're going to see Robert Pattinson, who played Edward. I don't think we're going to see him in his 60s doing like a remake of Ben-Hur. I just don't expect that. I think he got the role because he was pretty. That's basically it.
He was a model, just like Femke Janssen was a model, and that's how she got her start because she was attractive.
Exactly. So
like I said, but whereas Jodie Foster was actually honing her craft, and she's actually a great actress and a writer and a director. She's kind of a for lack of a better way to put it, she's kind of a triple threat. She's got the what do you call it? The stones, as it were. So
cojones is what we call it.
Yeah, there you go.
Jodie Foster has the broveries to get it done.
Broveries.
Apparently, and she's not. I noticed that there's probably a number of people in Hollywood that feel the same way that she does about all this ideological pushing that goes on, but they either stay quiet about it because they do have some concerns that it's going to affect their career, which I'm sure is true, or they're just so indifferent that they just don't bring it up, or they are pretty vocal. I think that guys like Stallone has talked about it, and James Woods. Have you ever seen James Woods' Twitter? That guy goes after liberals like nobody's business, but he's mainly talking about the special snowflakes, not just in general. And Clint Eastwood too. But Clint Eastwood is, again, like Jodie Foster, he's in a position where he's like, well, I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want because you can't hurt me.
Well, yeah, because these are much bigger ideas, though. These are much bigger problems. They aren't localized. We're talking about things that are affecting large, diverse groups of people. And that's why you see all these kind of very different, very disparate groups coming together under this umbrella or for the same cause, if you will. Because these aren't just things that affect you and I and Mike, or the Honey Badgers or Gad Sad or whoever it is. Like, these are things that are universally a problem, that are becoming a problem through the proliferation of technology and the ease of getting your voice out there. Like things like YouTube and Twitter especially have given people a voice, and in a lot of cases, the people that now have a voice are fucking insane. So it's a problem that is the light has shone on it very, very starkly.
We hope you enjoyed this clip show. If there was a clip from these shows that you think we should have shown, please leave a comment on this video and include a timestamp. Thank you, and Badger on.